What's up, everybody? Welcome to Omnipotent Health and Fitness episode number 6. Our guest today is a best-selling author, entrepreneur, and founder of CrossFit New England. He has coached 7 CrossFit Games champions, including some of the all-time greats in the sport of fitness, including 2-time CrossFit Games champion Katrin Davidsdottir and 5-time CrossFit Games champion Matt Fraser. His ideas and ability to incorporate Stoic philosophy seamlessly with mindset and grit has helped countless athletes unlock their full potentials. So please, join me in welcoming the man whose ideas and programming helped me get into the fittest shape of my life, Ben Bergeron. Ben, welcome to the show.
Wow, really good intro. I need you like as my hype man walking around behind me all the time.
Thanks so much. I worked hard on it.
Really, really good.
Thank you. So I always like to start with everybody's sort of origin story. You know, growing up, did you have an inkling that you wanted to be this kind of world-class coach? How did you get into this field?
No. So I grew up doing really poorly in school. So I didn't think that, honestly, like I thought my level of success in life would be at a pretty low imaginary ceiling. Went to school for business, but just wasn't passionate about it at all, but still kind of followed that pursuit and went into finance. And I was working in the back office for a foreign exchange trading desk when 9/11 happened. And we were in Boston. The planes left from Boston. It was I was in a iconic building in Boston at the time. So we were evacuated. That was the shift moment in my life where I realized I didn't want to be pushing money around on a computer. I wanted to have impact in my life. I wanted to have meaning. I wanted to contribute to other people's lives in some way. So I quit my job and I moved out to Wyoming for a year to try to figure out what I wanted to do. And it was either become a firefighter or join the military because I was so inspired by the heroic acts of that week and the time that followed. But there's a lot of logistical hoops to jump through to become a firefighter. I couldn't just become a firefighter, and I would have to move towns to do it. And the military, I just couldn't see myself killing someone. So I ended up deciding on becoming a personal trainer. And I kind of just resigned myself to I'm going to make, if I make, 50 grand a year, it's going to be awesome. And that's just the way I'm going to live. But I'm also not worried about what's going to come down the pipeline. I'm just going to do this thing. But while training, I got into triathlons, did a couple Ironman triathlons, and then eventually found CrossFit. And when I found that, it was like I stumbled upon something I didn't know I was looking for. And the methodology made sense. The pursuits, the definitions made sense. The community was amazing. And very quickly, I realized it's something I wanted to do for a long time. I opened up my gym. We had some early success at the CrossFit Games. My wife was a top 10 athlete. We won the CrossFit Games as a team. So we got named fittest gym in the world. And that just led me to some other opportunities of training to these other amazing world-class athletes. And that was very much like right place, right time.
Right.
I was very lucky to be working with Katrin and working with Matt and some of the other athletes that did incredibly well on that world-class stage. Humbling to be exposed to what they do on a daily basis. And I learned so much from them. So now kind of my passion, what I'm trying to do now is take the things I've learned along the way of what does it mean to be a world-class athlete, truly pushing the envelope of what we thought was humans were capable of performing. That's honestly where these guys are. Kind of put in perspective, exercise science 15 years ago would have said it's impossible to back squat 500 pounds and run a sub 5-minute mile. It's like you're either one or the other. There's different muscle fibers, there's different trainings, specific adaptation to impose demands. It would have said it's impossible. Now our athletes are doing it. They're rewriting exercise science literally. So my passion now is to take what I've learned with these elite athletes and bring it to everybody else. Everybody that's willing to do the work. I don't get motivated by getting people off the couch. I get motivated when someone comes to me and raising their hand says, I'm willing to do the work. Just, be my spirit guide. You can be, I want them to be Luke Skywalker. I'll be Yoda sitting in the background. That's what really gets me excited now, is to help people get whatever it is, get rid of chronic disease, just be a better soccer dad, to, have more energy, to, not be sick as much, to whatever those things are. The parallels are the same. It's the same. Fitness and health and performance. They used to be like 3 verticals. They're the same thing. They're all the same thing.
Absolutely.
Fitness, when you define fitness, fitness is work capacity across broad time and modal domains. So what that means is you can do a lot of things, whether it takes a short amount of time or a long amount of time. So whether it's picking up something really heavy or running a marathon, it doesn't matter what the task is, you can do it. That's what fitness is. Health is work capacity across broad time and modal domains across your lifespan. So it's the same thing. So we can pursue health, longevity, vitality, energy, chi, prana, spirit, all of that stuff through this brand of fitness. And that's what really sets my heart on fire at this point in my life.
I love that. And I can totally see that passion exuding from you at the moment. I was actually going to start this conversation in one direction, but I think we're just going to go with it. I want you to be our Yoda right now. And I know you're very much into Stoic philosophy, and you incorporate that into developing your athletes. For those who aren't familiar with Stoicism, what is it? And then how do you incorporate that into the mindset of your athletes?
Yeah. So Stoicism is not what you would assume it is, which is a Stoic person. So, I have some friends, and myself even, I come across as Stoic a lot of times. And, when they hear that you might be interested in Stoicism, they're like, that's the last thing you need. And it's not that at all. Stoicism is this understanding. There's a few key principles on it. And at the heart of it is understanding what it is you can control and what you can't. And that simple principle really brings a different paradigm to most of the way we navigate life. Because if you listen to conversations, there's a lot of people that complain about things that are outside of their circle of influence. And instead of just kind of, so that's one of them. The next one is this understanding of that you're on this earth for a very short period of time, that we are all going to die. It's like this, it's just embracing the one single fact that we have, which is death is coming to us all. And that sounds really morbid, but we talk about death a lot I have 4 kids, and the youngest ones are 9 and 7. And we talk with them a lot about it, because we believe that if you do that, you appreciate the day so much more. If you appreciate the day so much more, these little things that used to bug us kind of fall apart, because hey, this is not going to matter in 5 years. I'm not going to eat up 1, 2, or 3 of the 84,000 seconds I have today. That's all I got. So I'm not going to spend any of those seconds on things that don't really ultimately matter. The minutia and the mundane wash away when you kind of keep death at the doorstep. And the next is this amor fati, which means the embracing of fate. And this kind of just understanding that this is the way life happens. Life is happening to us. We don't have much control over it. Let's just kind of embrace and love the experiences we're having, and not try to judge everything along the way. So my initial introduction into this kind of philosophy was through Stoicism, but it expanded, and now I've gotten into more of a, for lack of a better, it's more of a different type of philosophical approach, which is more spiritual, I guess you would say, but not spiritual in the religious sense. But here's what's interesting: whether you talk about Stoic philosophy, Christianity, Buddhism, yogis, mental toughness, elite performance in the toughest physical environments in the world, it's all the same principles. There are very, very, very few things that differentiate those schools of thoughts, and the overlaps and the parallels are countless. It's all the same things, which is, it basically boils down to We are here experiencing life. And our objective is to learn, grow, and evolve from those experiences. Like kind of full stop, period. That's kind of where, so when you have that perspective, you realize that there is no good or bad, as Shakespeare said, but thinking makes it so. And what you start to realize when you kind of go with this navigating life through this prism, all of a sudden the things that we used to get like really worked up about may end up actually being the most beneficial things that can happen to us. So there are a number of people that have gone through, my mom being one of them. My mom has had stage 4 cancer twice in her life. Wow. Both 30 years removed from each other, but she's been through it twice, both times chemo, radiation, surgery, and she wouldn't trade those for anything because it makes her who she is. Now, when we're going through those moments and no one wished that upon anybody, we can have a very different viewpoint, which is like the woe is me and the victim mindset. The whole idea behind this is to elevate ourselves from the victim mindset, which is I have no control, woe is me, the world is out to get me. The victim mindset is the most detrimental thing that any individual could do to themselves. There's nothing worse. What we want to do is to elevate from the victim mindset to a higher level. The next one above that, which is just a little bit above that, I would call the pessimist, which is not so much woe is me. It doesn't put me at the center of the universe, but it's still, this is going to suck. Somebody that's going through cancer treatments, that's a victim mindset, is like, why? Why would this happen to me? Like the world is actually reaching out and pointing a finger on you and saying like, you get it. Whereas the pessimist doesn't necessarily say it's happening to me, but God, this sucks. We want to grow and evolve past that because we know that no one can perform their best, whether you're a race car driver, a CrossFit Games athlete, or an ER surgeon, with a pessimistic mindset. You can't go and be like, this surgery is going to suck. I hope I don't mess this one up. Hope I don't leave the scissors inside the person.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not going to work out very well.
Yeah.
What you'd rather have is an optimistic mindset, which is like, let's go get this. Like obstacles are opportunities. Let's go. This is another opportunity for me to learn, grow, evolve, and so on. But what's interesting is the difference between the pessimist and the optimist it's not like, whoa, now we're an optimist and we're so much better. The optimist is not the top because the optimist lacks a very important trait, which is called bracing. Bracing forces you to prepare. The optimist just goes like, if you're an optimistic salesman, it's like, oh, don't worry, we're going to make the sale. We got this. Like, we're just so much better than the other guys. Competitors don't stand a chance. And then when they ask you a really tough question in the presentation, you don't have an answer for it because you didn't brace for it. It's the team that's like, it's all right, we're the best. We're going to win every game. We're going to go undefeated. And they lose the first 2 games of the season, and the team falls apart in the locker room because they didn't brace for that. So it goes victim, pessimist, optimist. The higher level above that is the realist. And the realist is the one that realizes that there's bumps along the way and there's going to be goods and bads. And we could actually look back with enough hindsight and perspective at the bads and say, this is the greatest thing that ever happened to us. You know, losing that game in the middle of the season was the thing that taught us the most. I'm glad we didn't go undefeated. We learned more from the loss than we did from all of our wins combined.
Right. So how do you coach that in somebody to get more granular? So let's say somebody is in a victim mentality or even a pessimist mentality. How do you start to elevate them to the higher levels?
Words matter. That's why they call it spelling. Words cast spells. Every time we talk, we are spelling. You are putting out to the universe to get like a little chi, a little prana, like you're putting out your energies to the universe. Literally, vibrations are coming off of you. Don't worry about the weirdness part of this. But the idea is that words matter. So what we want to do, it's really hard to catch your own thoughts. With enough awareness, enough practice, you can. But in the beginning, the idea is pay attention to your words. And in the beginning, what we want to do is get rid of negative words, victim mindset words, complaining, gossip, excuses, drama. And that's why we all wear white bracelets. And on our bracelets, it says, never whine, never complain, never make excuses. And we have a tribe around us that all has the same pursuit, mission, values, goals. And if they hear someone complaining, we snap a bracelet. Go, you're hurting, you're putting a bad spell on me. So the first thing is you focus on it's literally your thoughts become your words become your actions will dictate your future. If you want to know why you are where you are right now, it's the decisions, actions, behaviors that you did over the last 5 to 10 years got you to now. If you want to be a different place in 5 to 10 years, start paying attention to your words, your actions, your decisions, and behaviors. So what we want to do is use a filter system to make sure that we are steering things in the way that we want to go and not getting derailed by certain events that might be like, well, it's actually, it's really simple. The word is called unconditional. It's like, are you unconditionally committed to ... You fill in the blank. Unconditionally committed to your wife, unconditionally committed to happiness, unconditionally committed to your job. And if you put that word on happiness or joy, people are like, and you ask somebody like, do you want to be happy? Do you want to be happy with your life? Everybody here on this call is going to raise their hand and say, yes, I would like to be happy. And then, okay, then just be happy. Like, choose to be happy. Just watch your words. Don't say unhappy words. Be like, got it, rock and roll, got it. But then someone says something bad about them on social media. Their business partner steals money from them. Their wife, husband leaves them. The dog gets sick. And people go, well, I'm choosing to be happy, but except for this one. Like this one, no one can be happy through this. Well, the word unconditional means no matter what. And the unconditional exists. And when I first came across this word, I had the conversation with my wife. We're both on this kind of journey together. And we were having a conversation, and it's like unconditional love. And it was like, do I love my wife unconditionally? And does my wife love me unconditionally? And at first it was like, of course we do. And then we realized probably not. And wow, like I had this conversation with her. That's a hard conversation.
Right.
Unconditional means like, even if you cheat on me, even if you try to stab me in the middle of the night, even if you hurt my kids, my love doesn't change. And that's a challenge. That's hard. But so I was like, okay, so unconditional love doesn't exist. And I thought about it with my kids. And this is a weird thing, but like with my kids, if my kids tried to hurt me or left the family or renounced us, my love for them would not change one bit at all. Zero. I might not like it. I might be disappointed, but that there is a thing that unconditional love exists. And you hear these amazing stories of people that forgive the person that murdered their son. That person is living with unconditional love for all of humanity. So that exists. And I think that's our challenge, and that's our pursuit.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely
kind of weird
incredible.
that you'd hear that from like a guy that does like lifts weights and teach people to run. I get it.
I do want to get granular into that area in a little bit, but you brought up your kids, and I also have 2 kids of my own, and I'm wondering how you go about and my kids are younger than yours, but how you go about instilling these values or these ideas into their life? I'm trying to Mr. Miyagi them or Yoda them in a way at an early age. How would you go about doing it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I believe in simplicity. And I think the easiest way to communicate is through principles, because you can tie things back. You can always tie something, instead of like this being another different example of something. So you find out that your kids lied to you. We found out this about our kids, that my wife does a great job of packing a really healthy lunch for them every morning. And we found out that our daughter, our youngest child, was not eating it. She was throwing it in the trash and getting it, the school lunches, which are terrible. And that's another discussion. And she lied about it. And it was like, okay, instead of like it being this one instant, we tied it back to one of our family values, which is honesty. And we can just always go like, this is who we are. And people want to be a part of a tribe. They want to be a part of that. And they want to, as long as you have shared value systems, really early on, we instilled in them what our values are. You know, it's humble, hungry, happy, healthy, and honest, like the 5 H's. So we can always tie something back to that. Like if they're like, I really want, you know, that candy bar. I really want that candy bar. It's like, okay, we can't have that candy bar. You can have it. Just realize that that's not super in line with the way we operate with our health thing. So I think it helps to really have those values and those principles with kids, because you can just talk about 5 things then, or you only have three values, even better, less is more. And just always tying something back to a high level principle. And that's just kind of, I think that's leadership in general, instead of having like, here's another unique, separate, special circumstances. It's like, you just always, it's like, we're having the same conversation. It's always about these things. And then the other one is, you talk about it a lot. You don't wait for it to be the bad instance that you need to bring it up. You talk about it when they do things awesome as well. You're like, oh my gosh, like this showed up the other night where Bodhi, our 9-year-old, got in a fight with his best friend, his neighbor. And we're like, what happened? What happened? He goes, well, I threw the dodgeball at Sebastian's face, and then he got really upset and he chased me all around. I got really scared. And like, it was like, Bodhi, that's so awesome what you just did there. That's awesome. How you were honest about you making this. The first thing you talked about was how you made a mistake. So really highlighting and celebrating any of the positives that line up with your values.
Absolutely. I love that. That's fantastic. Gonna shift gears a little bit. I think I heard you say on a podcast something along the lines of, if you had 2 athletes and one was the most talented athlete in the world, and then the other one was about an average in talent, but had a whole lot of grit and mental strength, you would actually choose the most talented athlete, because you could actually build that mental strength and grit in the athlete that was just, had this God-given gift. So my question is, what would be the first step in developing that athlete?
Yeah, it's interesting because it kind of flies in the face of what a lot of people are talking about, which is like, you get the hard worker, you get the hard worker, and then you build the skills behind them. That's like the politically correct thing to say, because we honor effort. And that's true. I want the hard workers for sure. But if you give me an exceptionally talented versus an average, I believe, because what people are saying there is you can build up the skills, but the hard work is a fixed trait. And I don't believe that. I think that you can actually build people into be hard workers. And I would do it the same way we've kind of talked about, which is, okay, what are we focused on? What is it that we're trying to do? Is that inside of our control? Okay, so what we're going to do is kind of like pyramid the approach to this. So we put a goal up at the top. That's the top of the thing. Below that is going to be the process that we're going to use to achieve that goal. So let's say it's to become the best doctor at your hospital, or it's to make honor roll at your Ivy League school, or it's to win the CrossFit Games, or it's to be the best piano player you can possibly be, whatever that thing is. Then specific to that endeavor, There is a more optimal process. And what we want to do is lay out what that process is. If we're trying to run a marathon, it's going to be the back-to-back longs on the weekends and then 2 to 3 shorts during the week. And the longs are going to increase. We need to make sure we're eating right, and we're going to get the body work done, and we're going to get our sleep. So there's a process built into that. I believe the process for most things comes down to a few big factors. It's how do you actually train the actual thing? So it's actually playing the piano. It's actually getting behind the race car. It's actually doing the typing, whatever it is that it's actually training the thing. But then the rest are like building you, and they all matter. It's how you're sleeping, how you're eating, what are your stress levels, what's your mindset. And from there, that mindset one leads into the bottom of the pyramid, which is developing the character. Because what we need to be able to do is have a certain set of discipline, resilience, fortitude, patience, humility, coachability to be able to follow that process. So what's the goal? I want to X. What are the necessary steps we need to do to get to X? Then what are the necessary character traits we need to be able to follow that process? And then we lay those out. Well, I need discipline. I need courage. I need patience. I need coachability. And then you just keep someone on track relative to those. And when someone has an oopsies moment, you call it out, because it's not what we talk about, it's what you tolerate. So when we said we were going to run every single day and somebody sleeps in, like, okay, that was your one. Like, it's okay to do it once, but don't do it 2 days in a row. Because when you do something 2 days in a row, that's who you're becoming. You're setting up a vice, you're setting up a habit, you're setting up a trend, whatever you want to say. Everyone's going to have the one-offs. There's no such thing as perfection. People are going to have bad days in the gym. People are going to be overtrained. They're going to leave, come back. They're going to have, fine, let's do that. But we're not going to allow that to happen 2 days in a row.
Absolutely. I was wondering, you mentioned, the goals that are at the top of the pyramid. I was wondering how you thought about more of a process goals versus a results-based goal. So the process being you showed up to the gym every single day versus I won the CrossFit Games. Do you intertwine the two, or how do you think about them with your athletes?
Yeah, I want to know what the destination goal is. You need to tell me, like, because I want to know if it's, to start a business and sell it for $100 million, or I need to know if it's to win the CrossFit Games, because the process is going to be very different. So I need to know that. I need to know what sets your heart on fire. Once I know that, though, we never need to talk about it again. It then becomes all process. So once we know that goal, just put it up on the shelf. I know it. You know it. We know what we're chasing. We don't need to focus on that anymore. And in fact, I believe different schools of thought here, and this is my approach as a coach, the more we focus on that, the more distracted we become, because every single day becomes a measuring stick up against that goal. And we don't want that. It's like, oh man, I had a bad day. So bad days get even worse because I'm so far away. I took a step back. Instead, they all become process-oriented goals, which is, as you said, so I want to qualify for the Boston Marathon. Okay, so cool. For your age group, that's running a 3:05. Cool. Let's put that up on the shelf. We know we need to be able to run a 3:05. Now, we don't need to kind of know that anymore, but what we do need to know is how many days a week are we doing our intervals? How many days are we doing our long runs? How many days a week are we doing our zone 2? And are we hitting our process goals along the way? Because if we focus on that thing and we really, 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 really focus on the destination goal, nothing happens. You're just thinking.
Right.
But if we really, really, really focus on the process stuff, you're taking steps forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in regards to this pyramid, I've heard you talk about practicing versus training versus competing. And where does that fit in this pyramid? And where does that fit on the grand scheme of developing a goal and achieving a goal?
Yeah, I think so specific to sports, you need to have all three. You need to have training, practice, and competition. So competition is pretty obvious. it's the scoreboard dictates how well you did. And the scoreboard at the end, that's what's really unique about sports. It's amazing about sports is after every 60-minute game, or whatever it might be, you know exactly where you stacked up. And that's why sports does so much for mental toughness, because there's so much weighing, you get so much feedback in real time, like this is where you are. So what a lot of amateur athletes end up doing though, is they end up competing themselves out of shape. So they end up just, if you're trying to do, run an Ironman triathlon, they train by signing up for all these little triathlons every weekend. But what we have to recognize is that competitions, which the way I define a competition is when you're done, you look at the leaderboard and the leaderboard matters to you. That's a competition. Mm-hmm. If you're doing that after every weekend, you have to recognize that there is a physical and a psychological toll being taken from those competitions. First, you have to taper before the event, meaning like wind down the intensity and the volume. And then afterwards, there's a physical and mental. You're sore, so you need to take time off. And there's this parasympathetic lashback from the psychological aspects of the stress you put on that weekend. So even if you don't feel sore, you might need 3, 4, 5 days just to recover psychologically from the event because of the stress that was placed upon you. So I recommend that people, depending on the sport, obviously if you're a baseball player, you compete 4 or 5 days a week. It's very different. But in our sport, like football, whatever it might be, you compete 1 day a week and only 16 times a year, 17 times now. And then, so that's competition. Then the rest is people used to put that together, which is practice and training, but they're very different. Mm-hmm. Practice is low intensity. It is skill development. Speed cannot be a component. So if you're trying to run faster, it would be your drills that you do beforehand, like getting your hand to go from cheek to cheek, not crossing over the midline. You just trying to compete I don't want you to focus on that. I want you to shut your mind off, go into your subconscious, find a flow state and just go. Let your body find. But if we want to improve, you're not going to improve through competition. You're going to improve through practice. Practice is where you're working on the mechanics of the movements. You're learning to type and you don't have a stopwatch with you. You're just working on the accuracy of where your hands are, always coming back to the home keys. It's practice. And then training is where you take that practice, but add in little elements of speed, but there's no leaderboard. So it's you doing it on your own in your room. We're learning to type. I'm just going to see how many words a minute I can get right now, but I'm going to make sure my goal is no errors. So I'm going to go slower because I'm going to make sure I don't get any errors and so on. If we're learning to play classical violin, it's not just working the scales. Now you're going to practice a song because the song has an actual rhythm and a melody to it. You're trying to work it that way. I believe that most people in most endeavors should be spending close to 40 to 50% of their time practicing. Earlier on in their career, it should be even higher than that because it's going to be all skill development. Like when you learn to swim. If you're learning to swim, it's 100% practice. No one says like, okay, what we're going to do today is jump in and we're going to do 10 by 100 on 30 seconds rest. And then we're going to do, that'd be insane. What you do is you get in, you practice like, can you get your hand out of the water? Can you balance? Can you float? So you have to practice more earlier on in your career. And then so that's 40 or 50%. And then another 40-ish% should be taken up by training. That's actually building the physiology, laying down. So one is like the myelin sheaths. It's the repetitive movement. The other is actually like the oxygen in the muscles. One is the coordination, the accuracy, the agility, and the balance. One is the cardiorespiratory, the strength, the actual flexibility and mobility. And then you combine those two things together, and now you're ready to compete. But competition should only be laid about 10% of the time. Right.
That's interesting to put those percentages on it. And so in your daily classes, if you're practicing 40 to 50% of the time, does that mean, for example, would you be practicing clean and jerks with just the PVC pipe for 40% of the time, or just like very light loads? Or how does that look?
Yep. So practice is usually defined as anything underneath 60%.
Okay.
Training would be about that 65 to about that 90%, depending on where you are on the training cycle. And competition is where you go for it. But the difference is when you go for competition, I don't want my athletes thinking about how to move better. They should just be getting up there and they should be thinking about anything, honestly. That's what flow state is. That's when you're in the zone, is when there is nothing and you just let your ability to pour out of you. But if you're practicing, it's all conscious. It's all thought. What I need you to be able to do is, if we're doing cleans, I need you to be able to keep the bar against your thighs at the start of the second pull. Like, that'd be insane for me to tell someone, like, once they're walking on the competition floor, that's all they're thinking about, instead of just get up there and do my thing.
Right. If you mentioned flow state, and for anybody that hasn't heard that term before, could you define flow state and how would one get into flow state?
So I don't know if I have the best definition for it, but basically it's when your mind shuts off and you let your abilities just pour out of you, and it feels awesome. You lose sense of time and things are just clicking. So most of us have probably experienced this in one form or fashion. You're writing something and the words are just pouring out of you. It's like, oh my God, it's amazing. You're playing basketball and the shots are just all dropping. You're powder skiing and it's just like this amazing flow. It actually originated in extreme sports, because the risks were high and people were doing this because they were so passionate about it. It usually has to do with you're really enjoying and excited about the experience. And this is where people's best performances come out. It's when they're in flow state. They're like, and it's hard to explain. It's like, it just felt so good. I don't know. My shots were just dropping. I felt like every single shot I took was going to go in the hoop. That's a flow state. The thing that takes us away from our flow state: fear, anxiety, regret, doubt, jealousy, all the negative emotions. And that's why we have to try to mitigate those as much as we possibly can in any sort of environment. If I'm creating a team, whether it's a sports team or a business team, the number one thing I'm trying to do is get people to eliminate those negative emotions. We have to eliminate, because what happens is people come into business, they join a team in business and they have all the skill sets in the world, but every time the boss walks by, they get a feeling in their stomach. Every time that happens, you're pulling someone out of a flow state. If I send someone a text message that works for me and says, hey, Al, could you meet at 3 o'clock? We need to chat. From now until 3 o'clock, you're so unproductive relative to what you are potentially capable of producing. So the goal is, in all communications, in all environments, in all culture, in all systems and processes, is to get people to flow into that flow state as much as possible. If you're in the operating room and you're the dictator, you might be able to get people to do what you want to happen, as like all the nurses do exactly, all the other doctors do exactly what you want, but they're not going to be in a flow state, and your team will not operate to its fullest potential unless they are. And the honest thing is those times are reserved. It's not the norm, but it can be more normal. I'm not going to say people are going to experience it all the time, but if someone does experience it all the time, by the way, what that's called is enlightenment. That's living with true chi and spirit. That is what all of the spiritual ones, that's like finding God. That's heaven on earth, where you live with no fear, no guilt, no anxiety, no jealousy, no, I wish this would have gone this way. You just experience the moment right now for the moment. And this is where all the popular talk is coming about be present. And there's, whether it's the Calm app or everyone's like, be present, be present. And what people hear that as is be where your feet are, which means don't be distracted by your phone. That's like that's level one. Like, don't be distracted by a screen, because then you are not here. But the thing that's really pulling people away, really pulling people away, is how much time we spend thinking about the future, causing stress, anxiety, or reliving things that have happened in the past. Either one of those two things gets you away from a flow state. For an athlete, that is, okay, they're thinking about NCAA tournaments going on right now, 2 seconds left, 2 free throws to tie the game. And they're like, oh my God, what happens if I miss this? The chances of them, you're pulling out of a flow state. Now, even if they're going like positive, which is like, if I miss this, I'm going to get all the accolades, awards, trophies, endorsements, girls, whatever it is. That's, again, it's better, but it's pulling away. The best thing to do is just like, if you can operate with, I don't want to say nothing, because that discredits what it is, but it's no judgments. There's no judgment. You're just here in the moment, fully experiencing this moment right now. And that's when our best can come out of us. Imagine an actor on Broadway that's like worried about flubbing the next line. They're not going to put a good performance out. It might be average, but it wouldn't be a stellar. Nobody can put out a stellar performance, always analyzing, what's the audience thinking about me right now? Oh my God, I'm going to remember my next line. But when they just become the character, when they just become that person and allow it just to flow out of them, that is a flow state. And they're not like, I messed up my line 3 times in rehearsal. Oh my gosh, like, it's not the past either.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love all of that, but I'm mortified that we're coming close on the end of our time, and I want to leave time for a Q&A. But before I ask my final question, where can everyone find your amazing work and content?
I wish I had a better answer than this, but it's probably on Instagram. But don't go on Instagram. I'd rather you not find me and just spend time with the people you care about. Fair
enough. That's amazing. So my final question is, if you had a magic genie and you could wish for all of humanity to adopt one lifestyle modification that would most greatly impact their health, what would it be?
Stop judging every moment. My job is to get people stronger, to get people to run, sub 5-minute miles, and to deadlift over 500 pounds, and, be able to do 50 pull-ups in a row. And I talk all the time about sleep and nutrition, all that stuff. It's all such a step down from this thing that we got going on our head. The human brain is amazing. So I don't want to discredit it. It's amazing. The reason we're having this conversation over this computer is because of the human mind. The human mind's amazing. It's beautiful. It's developed so much. It basically does 3 things. It can focus. So it can read a book. It can solve problems. Like, how do we have tele-meetings? 2 amazing things. When it's not doing one of those 2 things, for most people, it defaults to chatter. Chatter eats us up. It's the thing that's going to keep us from being as healthy as we possibly could. I believe there's 5 things that we need to focus on to be our optimal healthiest. It's how we move, exercise, how we eat, how we sleep, how we connect with other people, ourselves, and nature. That matters a lot. And then the last one is how we think. The think one is actually the thing that sets up, either opens the floodgates for this to all the others to really happen, or close them up. And you have all these small imaginary ceilings that you're trying to move better. You're trying to sleep better. You're trying to connect with your family better. You're trying to, and you can't because you haven't gotten this thing straightened out. If I had one wish, it would be that people didn't judge things as much and just didn't listen to the mental chatter in their heads. Just let it kind of pass through them, because it's going to come. I'm not saying it's not, it's still going to be there. You're still going to, bad stuff's going to happen in our lives, and the thought's going to come like, well, but you don't hold on to it. Just let it pass through, and now we're on to the next thing. That'd be my one.
That's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Ben, for coming on our show. Guys, if you haven't already, I mean, you can tell he's Yoda manifested in human form. And he does have a lot of amazing content. He has a podcast, Chasing Excellence. His book, Chasing Excellence, was very integral to my life during medical school and doing amazingly. And he also has another book out, which I'll be purchasing and reading shortly. So make sure to check all of those things out. But thank you, everybody, for showing up. And until next time, thanks, everyone.